My name is George Shaler, and I'm the board president of the Justice Information Resource Network. This interview is another in a JIRN series titled Justice Insights Conversations with the SAC. I'm here today with Baron Blakley, who, along with Kevin Roach and Shweta Agrawal from the Virginia Criminal Justice Research Center, recently released a report titled Drug Cases Submitted to the Virginia Department of Forensic Science Calendar Year 2024 that we'll learn more about in a moment. Before we get started, I would like Baron to introduce himself. Baron, please let the viewers know your role with the Criminal Justice Research Center.
Sure. Like I said, Baron Blakley. I'm the director of the Virginia SAC, which is the Criminal Justice Research Center in the Virginia Department of Criminal Justice Services.
So Baron, tell me a little bit more about the impetus behind the project. Like, what was the research problem or policy question or programmatic need that you were trying to address with this report? And please let me know what was the funding agency behind this project?
Sure. We've been doing the report for about 12 years now. It doesn't have a specific funding source. It's just part of the work that we do. We started, again, about 12 years ago when I was working on the jail forecast. And we saw that there was the backlog in DFS drug cases was leading to an increase in the pretrial population. So we started looking at that data a little more then. Then a few years later, we saw there was a sudden drop in the jail population, and it seemed to be related to cocaine offenses being, fewer cocaine arrests. So I got more detailed data then, and that's when they started sharing with me their monthly report that they send to the National Forensic Laboratory Information System, NIFLS, which has just a lot more detail. I worked with that for a couple of years. And we've right around the time the opioid crisis was really being understood, being recognized, I decided that the data that I was working with needed to be shared more broadly. It's not really DFS's role to share that information. Their job is to analyze the data and get the information to law enforcement and the courts and that sort of thing. But now that I could see it, I could see that there was a real utility for policymakers and program directors to see what the information was showing us.
Oh, that's great. Thank you, Baron. Baron, so tell me a little bit, give me a brief overview of the methodology or research methods that you used in this study.
The data is from the monthly report DFS makes to NIFLS, which every state makes, I would assume, in some form. And if the biggest hurdle was categorizing all the substances, if the substance identified as cocaine or heroin, that's pretty easy. It's just part of a drop-down menu, and there's not any problems when they're entering the data. But for the novel substances, they're not on a drop-down menu yet. They're novel. They've just appeared, and generally they're long and, for me at least, complicated chemical formulas, and you have to try to figure out where that is. So if you got a long chemical name and it's 1-naphthalonyl 1,5-fluoropentyl indole 3 carboxylate. Is that a hallucinogen? Is that a stimulant, a synthetic opioid, or a cannabimimetic agent? And it's actually the last cannabimimetic agent, which is sometimes referred to as synthetic cannabinoids. So a lot of it was just trying to get my head around that and getting those categorized. But the chemistry is only one side of the problem. The other side is the fact that it's a database, and I'm trying to take the information in there and link it to something else. And because those formula are so long and complicated, you have quite a few typos, and different people entering it in will have different abbreviations. So you'll often have the same substance in there with multiple different substance names, but they're really the same substance. So as of right now, there's currently almost 2,500 unique substances in their system. But when I say unique, I really just mean the exact spelling because of the duplication. So the big thing I did was create a lookup table. They could take all of those substances and condense them into 18 main drug categories and 78 subcategories at this point. And every month there's new substances, and so we just have to recategorize those. When I first started, I basically had to go through and categorize what was there myself. I mean, it was a smaller number then. and then worked with DFS to make sure the categories that I put together made sense. And so that they had one of their chemists go through it, and he made corrections, moved things around as necessary. And once he'd done that, I could follow what he'd done and update it more easily myself, and then have just DFS review it occasionally. The most recent time was they reviewed it was in spring. So we can feel confident about the categories, but yeah, creating the drug categories, I think, is probably the big thing that we've done to make the report possible.
Right. So what were some of the key outcomes or key findings from this study?
Sure. Well, for this year's report, I would say the big finding is the drop in illicit synthetic opioids, which are primarily fentanyl, about 99% are fentanyl or fentanyl analogs. There was a 13% drop in those submissions this year. And that's important because that's the primary driver of the opioid crisis. The overwhelming number of drug overdoses are caused by fentanyl. And in fact, we saw in 2024, there was also a 44% drop in fentanyl overdose fatalities in Virginia. And that's not part of this report, but it's a fact that we can look at and say that kind of confirms that what we're seeing in the submission data does in fact indicate a drop, that the drop is real. And at the same time, we're seeing this drop in fentanyl cases, though. In the same year, we saw an increase in heroin. Heroin cases went up case submissions went up about 23%, but that's off a much lower number. And so even with that increase and the fentanyl decrease, fentanyl still outnumbers heroin about 5-1. And more to the point, fentanyl is just a much higher lethality level than heroin. As bad as heroin is, it's just much less lethal than fentanyl. Even with the increase in heroin, we still saw a drop in heroin fatalities in 2024 because most of the heroin fatalities also involve fentanyl. So because there's less fentanyl, there was less heroin fatalities. And I guess if I was to pick a third thing that showed up, it's just we're seeing a continuing increase in cocaine cases. Cocaine submissions are up over 40%, I think, over the past several years. So just we're continuing to watch that.
So what's the next step? What are the next, what were you and your co-authors, what are you recommending, if anything? And what's like the policy implications for this report?
Well, I've presented the results of this report recently, actually, in the past couple of months, to a few different groups. The forecasting group that works on offender population forecasting for Virginia, and also we have a fentanyl and heroin task force that the legislature and governor put together. And so I presented them last month on these trends and some others. And at this point, I mean, our role is really just to inform them. This is what we're seeing. And we include a lot of maps. So this is what we're seeing. This is where we're seeing it. This is where the changes are, and letting them know that the data are out there so that as they have questions, they can ask us and we can give them more detailed and more specific information on a particular locality or on a particular drug. They just first need to know that it's even out there. So that's been the main thing, just promoting that it exists.
Well, that's great, Baron. I mean, I think, like, especially if you pinpoint areas of the state of Virginia where, drugs, there are certain drugs that are more prevalent. Obviously, that helps inform law enforcement's efforts to kind of target resources in those areas. I want to thank you so much for sitting down with me for this interview, and congratulate you on this report. It's a great one, and I think it'll have a lot of benefit for the state of Virginia. So thank you so much.
Thank you, George. It's been a pleasure.